Hello and welcome to the FlowRy Show, a journey through life's tapestry, wisdom for every generation. On this show, we talk about where generations intertwine, sharing stories, insights, and dreams. Whether you're a seasoned sage or a curious young mind, we're all students in the grand classroom of life. Join here with me is my co host, Mike Ryan, and I, Nicole Flowers, as we explore a tapestry woven with threads of collaboration, dreams, and lessons learned along the way. In today's segment, we're going to talk about intergenerational collaboration in the workplace. And when we talk about intergenerational collaboration in the workplace, it's a crucial aspect of fostering a dynamic and innovative environment, bringing together individuals from different generations that truly unlocks a wealth of experiences, perspectives, and skills, leading to enhanced creativity and problem solving. Mike, I would like for you to share with our audience your perspective on how we can go about with intergenerational collaboration in the workplace as we embrace each other's unique strengths and how organizations can cultivate a more inclusive and thriving workplace. Just given companies that you have launched and companies that you have also joined and worked for over the years. Share your perspective, Mike.
Sure. Well, I've worked with early stage companies that, in general, I've worked for corporations that have been around for over 150 years. And if I contrast between the two, you look at least here in Silicon Valley, you have companies that, by their very nature, have or technology or biotech or whatever. So just the difference between those two, you would have technology companies that, the typical assessment or at least a perception of technology companies that is started by a 22-year-old right out of college or a college dropout, right? When in fact, most entrepreneurs really don't launch companies until they've got 10, 20, 30 years of experience. And so by the very nature of a startup and then a corporate company, you have multi-generations. You at least have 4 to 5 different generations that involved in operating a company. And if you look at the hierarchy that we have, at least in the US corporations, if not internationally, is that tenure has a great value in that you have institutional knowledge. If you have someone who is comes in as a supervisor, a manager, a vice president, and then ultimately into the C-suite, I think they get there by not alone. They work with their colleagues that almost across the board they're involved with on projects on different teams. And that requires having a great understanding, or at least a nominal understanding, what other generations' expectations are and what their work approach is as they develop a new product, a new solution, a service. And it's key, I would argue, that you have different perspectives as you work on the problem, whatever it may be, or the problem may be just developing a new product, a new service, or whatever. So if you have folks that, let's say, are in the Gen Z, which again is about 17% of the workforce now, but will ultimately be the majority in the next 20 years. And then, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed is what you historically hear, right? Then how do you take those folks and integrate them into a team? Often, you would have someone who, let's say, like myself, is a baby boomer or a Generation X, folks that are in their 50s and 60s, that are may take a lead or administrative response to a team. But in many cases, we've all been there. If you're the 20-year-old, you're usually pulling in and doing a lot of the work, and that gets the others. You're doing the hard work, right? As far as the labor and stuff like that. Now, as you move up the organization, you have different folks there. In this case, we'd say, millennials and Xers that are supervisors, and recognizing that the value that the generation, the more, let's just say, less experienced folks, but they may have a lot of enthusiasm. They have a different perspective in how something should work, as opposed to, oftentimes it's like, if you're at a corporation, for example, that's been around for 10, 15, 20, or 100 years, people are going to say, whoa, slow down. We don't do it like that. This is how we do it. I just remember the movie Big with Tom Cruise. And he's basically, the story is he's basically a 9-year-old kid or something like that, 12-year-old kid that is put into the workforce as a 30-year-old man, right? Because he overnight transforms. And he's sitting there working hard. He's got these great ideas, and people that are his same age chronologically are saying, slow down. What are you doing? You're trying to make us look bad. Now, that's the negative part of it, right?
Yeah.
On the flip side of that, having taking the enthusiasm as that example in the movie Big, and harnessing that for the good. And actually that movie kind of shows that, because you had the founder of the company, who was a guy well into his 60s, recognizes Josh's talent, and he becomes, kind of like the fair-haired kid, to use some terms, to design the next toy for that for the mass audience. And because he's still a kid inside, he kind of he does that. So I think there's many examples of how multi-generational have solved everything from computers to bringing computers to life, to biosciences or whatever. And so those are some of the thoughts I have.
No, and thanks for sharing that, Mike. And you just piqued my memory, where I read somewhere about Siemens reverse mentoring program. And for our viewers who do not know, Siemens, they're a German multinational conglomerate, a global technology leader. And they have been able to successfully implement a reverse mentoring program. And one may ask the question, what is this reverse mentoring program? It's a program where younger employees or individuals from various backgrounds mentor senior leaders, sharing their unique perspectives and experiences. And as you're talking about, Mike, just the younger folks are excited and really want to get engaged, and you have the senior folks who are providing that oversight. It truly enables promoting knowledge sharing, diversity of thought, and allowing everyone to feel inclusive. A few key aspects that I want to highlight for organizations who engage across multi-generations. One is looking at this reverse mentoring that I've read from Siemens. The role of the reversal, where younger or diverse employees is mentoring senior leaders, this truly allow that fresh perspective. You have the younger tech savvy person who wants to share their ideas with the senior person who has the depth and breadth and wealth of experiences over the decades, being able to truly come together and figure out, how can we build on these experiences? To your point, Mike, solving complex problems across multiple industries and in various facets. And, as I double click in my thought around the innovation and growth, it certainly encourages innovative thinking and provide personal growth for not just the mentors, but also the mentees. And I would imagine that, and based on what I've read as well, that they have seen some success. And I would imagine that such a program truly helps to bridge the generational gap, and also fosters a culture of learning and mutual respect. But as we continue along these lines around intergenerational exchange and the sense of community, Mike, I know you work across various continents and countries on a daily basis without hopping on a flight. Share
Right.
with us some of the things and ways in which you go about communicating across generations, your shared experiences, how you go about building that sense of community, and the advice that folks seek or are seeking from you, and the advice that you give, etc. Just share your tidbits on that.
Yeah, I think we're I'm very fortunate to have that I'm currently living in this generation that or this time frame, because I don't necessarily have to get on a plane like I did 30 some years ago to have an impact and to meet with people and to mentor them. I can do have a mentorship or talk to folks in Germany 1 minute and in 1 hour, and then someone in Tel Aviv, another person in Singapore or whatever. And what that does, it gives me more time to focus less on travel and the headaches that has to do, but also bring in a diversity of different perspective from different countries, right? As well as people who are, again, I mentioned last time, I tend to mentor with folks that don't look like me and aren't the same gender. But I will say, going back and reflecting on how I was, trained or acclimated into the workforce. Once I had gotten my, actually in the process of my master's degree, and I got a master's from George Washington. And one thing that unique with them, and you kind of just triggered this, is that it requires an administrative residency with a CEO within a hospital. So here you are, most folks in management programs in healthcare management are usually between the age of, I was 22 to, let's say, 30 or so. And then you're with someone for a year, right? And sometimes longer, to work with the CEO. And most of the time, with rare exception, that person is either in their 50s, 60s, or even 70s. So what that provided me is it gave me a insight and glimpse into how decisions were made. I went to all board meetings. I was happened to be, my CEO happened to be on a few boards. One was in Birmingham, Alabama. And so, making that trip, listen to, even seeing different things they deal with. And then the other one, I went to board meetings. This is a female CEO. I went to her board meetings at Meharry Medical Center in Nashville. And what that provided me, I had the energy. I, did the night shifts and administrative residency, all that kind of stuff. And it really provided me an opportunity to see how an organization works. And again, that's just one snapshot. I think that as I took on roles within hospitals and healthcare, and then later other businesses and technology company, recognize the value that provided me as a young a manager, as a new person into an organization. I realized that as I moved up my career, as far as the corporate ladder and stuff like that, the real value in having that, and having whether it's formal or informal mentorship for folks. And I've just really replicated that in a more digital first, because this generation, and I have folks that are in their mentored within their teens up until well into their 70s, and there's a great stratification of the different types of communication tools they're comfortable with and how we communicate. But overall, the common thread is really relationships, trust, and providing them some insight, not necessarily not to make mistakes, because I think that's part of who you become as an executive and as a leader. And so, it basically gives them a full exposure to a lot of different things. And then that adds value to, as you bring teams together to solve a solution for an organization.
No, and you're spot on, Mike, and you've hit on this intergenerational integration and harnessing the unique strengths and perspectives of each age group which results in innovative and effective solutions. In fact, when different generations come together, we're co-creating a design, because individuals from the different walks of life, they truly look at the sides of the coin differently and how we go about solving these problems. I mean, you talk about influencing factors like mutual respect, which which are key to success for co-creating design approaches when we're looking at projects and trying to solve for problems. Because what is clearly required are clear communication, mutual respect, a shared understanding of the common goals, and the willingness of each of us to learn from each other. We have the input from the diverse generations to ensure a broad range of ideas, right? Because everyone's providing their input and perspectives. And coming out of that, we're able to reflect on the collective wisdom and that creative potential of the group, which leads to those effective solutions and to drive the innovations. Now, we know that coming together across the different generations, there are some constraints, but it's how we go about addressing those challenges, whether it be technology skills, which you touched on. There are different technologies that each of us, each generation has been introduced to, and how we embrace those technologies, the communication styles. And one key thing is also the cultural context. How we address these constraints are certainly very effective in us having successful ways of how we collaborate. But let us double click a bit more here, Mike, because we do want to encourage intergenerational relationships at the workplace, whether it be through project collaboration, focus conversations, through workshops and mentoring, which you have done quite a bit of. In conversations with your would it be founders from other countries that you have been mentoring, what are some of the keys to success that you have seen firsthand view working with them, and the tidbits, the milestones that they've been able to achieve as they continue to build their companies, as you're mentoring them? Share with us some of those tidbits that you're seeing that allows them to arrive to those successful milestones.
Well, I think by the very nature, if again they're founders, right, and that is a different type of woman or man that has an idea, wants to capitalize on it, but may not know how to do that, right? But they have they're not adverse to risk working as a W-2, at least in the United States, or working for basically you have a job for life. In my understanding, I do have some insight on this. If you live in certain countries, and so that really doesn't exist anymore, at least in the United States. So that's one thing that's different as far as a social I guess a social compact is that what we call it, between the employee and the companies, right? So if you have someone that is, let's say, leaving the confines of the security of a corporation and wants to do as an entrepreneur, wants to build their own company, that's a completely different individual, right? That has that mindset, but they also may not have the insight of what that looks like, what the hurdles are, what the pitfalls are, what the opportunities are. What do they do as far as hiring the right person? And now we're a little more fortunate than we were even before COVID, because there was a resistance prior to COVID. I work with Silicon Valley again, but we would have, and I've got a lot of mentees in India. But having that outsourcing happen in India and places like that, right, or China or Vietnam, so you have founders that are looking for information. They're looking for someone to mentor them, and so all I'm saying as far as that's not everyone that comes to that conclusion that they need it. So what I see is someone has the tenacity, has the somewhat calculated risk in starting a company, and then how can I help them navigate all the intricacies and challenges that you may have as a founder. And that typically is anyone from the age of a teenager to a someone who's well into their 60s, but they bring a breadth of knowledge, expertise. Those that I mean, I think Ray Kroc was 55 when he started McDonald's, and now everyone knows McDonald's. Harlan Sanders was 60. I think he was 64, 65 at the time before he started. Kentucky Fried Chicken. Now these are international brands, right, that anyone would recognize. So I think what I see as far as mentoring, what's different, part of it would be the different countries that have their own social contract with employees or historically people who work for companies. So the common thread with people I work are more entrepreneur, right? And so they're kind of like me, but just in a different location. And so I've been through what they've been through, and I can help guide them going forward.
And I guess the same will apply also in a corporate work setting, right? Because at the end, whether you're a startup entrepreneur interacting with someone who's two generations before your time, or you're in a corporate environment, there are benefits to be achieved with intergenerational collaboration. I mean, we've started touching on a few themes: enhance innovation, where we're combining fresh perspectives of the younger employees with the experience of the more seasoned person like yourself, Mike. Improve problem solving. We're bringing diverse problem solving approaches. You've mentioned it that, with these founders that you've worked intimately with, they have the tenacity to lead, and they're seeking a more comprehensive view of how they go about to develop effective solutions. And of course, increase productivity, which is required for both startups and corporate culture, right? We want to leverage the strengths of your teams, which leads to productivity and efficiency, and of course, just a stronger organizational culture. But with some of these benefits, I'm sure there are some drawbacks, as I'm sure you'll agree with me, Mike, around the intergenerational collaboration. Yes, we talk about communication gaps and work style differences, but Mike, just given your breadth and depth, what are some of those, whether it be generational stereotypes that you have seen, and some of the communication challenges that you have witnessed, and also fear of change? What are your perspective on some of the challenges around intergenerational collaboration?
Yeah, I think there's a few. I will confess, when I was at GW, I took Fortran and COBOL. Now, most people, they know that if they go to Wikipedia and look it up and look at the history. And now I think everything, and you're an expert in this area, is probably AI generated. But midway, probably about 10 years ago, I went back and because I did it more for understanding versus mastery, and took coding at Stanford, right? And so I could, at least have some idea. But I think that some of the challenges, and I'll give you a real world experience. So here someone who has started several companies, had been mentored to several, startups that have been very successful. Some have become unicorns, and meaning billion-dollar companies that went public and stuff. But so I once joined a company that I was the elder statesman. I was actually, I think, the first employee, but they had about 3 or 4 other founders, and it was an extraordinary experience. Wonderful people, very successful, all that, had a great exit. But when I went into work to put the butts in seats, I'd come in, and everyone in the office, and there was no more than 8 or 9. This is a startup, right? There was silence, almost exclusively silence, as everyone was, doing this. And most of these folks were millennials, and and I would say, to ask a question, I'm sitting shoulder to shoulder next to someone. And to ask a question like, "Do you want to go to lunch or whatever?" I do it on Slack. There was no communication, and that's, I can't, I'm the outsider, even though I'm the insider, right? But
Yeah.
from a generational challenge, that was a challenge for me to be there. It was like, as my wife said, why don't you just stay at home? You can do this from home as opposed to deal that. So I think there's definitely, and that was reverse, right? I mean, I can say the same thing where early in my career, where, like I think I used kind of an example of, oh, don't do that, slow down. We try to get reports done in 5, 6 months. And someone told me, I swear, I never forget this, as a 22-year-old, administrative residence, where they said, the process is the most important thing. If this takes us a year, that's the most important things. I said, I'm sorry, I disagree. Of course, I came from two entrepreneur parents where, I said, in my opinion, it's the results that count, not how long it takes you to get there. And so there's an example of someone of my own experience being, kind of out of the generational norm of interaction with someone that was older than me, not elderly, older than me. They were probably in their 50s, and I was in 22, 23. And then here, flipped around, I was probably in my mid 50s, and yet others I was working with were in their 20s and early 30s, where their communication mode was not verbal, not interactive, that I kind of thrive on, as you can tell. And so that was kind of an extraordinary some examples I have.
Now, do you think some of those challenges was just stemming from fear? We have individuals who were more tech savvy, and you're face to face, just the uncertainty of how we go about communicating that, and may have created some perceived threats or just discomfort.
No, I don't. No, I really, I don't think of that, because people who I've been mentors to and I've known for 10 years before, right? I think it's just the way. Well, part of them you also got to look at, right? We talk about intergenerational things, but then we'll also talk about, what are characteristics of personality. I'm ADHD, dyslexic, extrovert, and I forget the ENTJ or whatever the Myers-Briggs is, right? But because I can't do letters, but I think that it was really in general. When you're in the tech world, I deal with people who are on the spectrum every day. And so part of it, they're introvert, like yourself, you've shared, right? That I'm extrovert. So that right there is not a necessary clash, but we're different. And so we have different styles. And so it was incumbent to me to adopt or adapt to their style, since they were the majority, folks involved. There were more of them than me.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to switch, I wasn't going to change their approach, and that's fine. And I learned a lot from that. So.
No, absolutely. I think you summed it up quite nicely as well, because at the end is how we go about promoting that communication and just the diversity of how we interact and engage with each other. Mike, it's always a pleasure as we share our stories, building connection and understanding.
Yes.
We truly allow ourselves to connect at a much deeper level when we're able to share our lived experiences and
No doubt.
foster understanding. As we navigate the tapestry of life, remember that every chapter offers new lessons, opportunities, and connections. Mike and I, we embrace our journey and cherish the moments and continue to learn, grow, and inspire. Until next time, thanks for listening to us,
Yep.
and we'll be speaking again. Bye bye for now.
Bye bye.